forgot what terror is like. The original Jaws.
When I need to relax, I often like to kick back and watch a big monster movie or shark movie. I suppose there's something about watching people get eaten by creatures that feels a little exhilarating, but also reminds me that I'm alive and safe. It gives me the opportunity to settle into myself, like a more disturbing version of people watching in a park. Except these people that I'm watching are often hastily written and only findable within the depths of whatever streaming service is at my fingertips at that moment. However, when I sat down to watch the 1978 film Piranha, I could not have expected that it would leave me energized and eager to rewatch Jaws.
Piranha is not the greatest movie ever made, but it's a pretty damn good movie, and it's a magnificent Jaws ripoff. It's a fantastic Jaws ripoff.
Unfortunately, after rewatching Jaws for the first time since I think I was probably 16, I found myself disappointed in the movie with the cool poster from my childhood. I think I look for something different out of movies now than I once did. Watching Jaws as a kid laid the foundation for the type of movies that I enjoy, but somehow Piranha became the movie I actually enjoy as an adult. Let me explain. I think my memory was lying to me about Jaws. Maybe I watched it so long ago, my main takeaways started with a very scary animatronic shark and ended with a very scary soundtrack. And while those two things are still impressive, I do dare say genre defining, actually enjoying this film requires you to be interested in watching men talk for hours.
Contact the shark. We're going to put extra deputies on because you have to ring this entire harbor.
As someone uninterested in the Irishmans, Oppenheimers, and heirs of Hollywood, Jaws falls squarely into that category as the majority of the film consists of three men talking in a boat. And while I understand some of the Freudian nature of those conversations, I find that, and the idealized paternalism in the film, to be less attractive as an adult than it was when I was a child. I have more perspective now on what it means to care for others in a practical way than I ever have. And Jaws isn't a film that's interested in practice more than it is interested in theory. So I want to say thank you to Steven Spielberg for Jaws, because without Jaws, there is no Piranha.
Just you wait, you see, just when it was shot.
Piranha starts out as the story of ace skip tracer Maggie McCown, played by Heather Menzies, who's sent down to rural Texas to investigate the disappearance of a young couple. While she's down there, she meets unemployed single father and booze lover Paul Grogan.
Paul Grogan?
Played by Bradford Dillman. The duo hightails it over to the secret lab where the couple was last seen, and while there, Maggie unknowingly unleashes a school of mutated piranhas into a heavily trafficked river that passes through a local summer camp and a popular family resort. From that point forward, it's a race against the clock to stop the bloodthirsty fish from turning an entire town into their next meal. As you can see from the summary, Piranha is pretty action-packed, whereas Jaws is actually pretty slow for an adventure movie. In all honesty, the pacing gives Jaws a little bit of polish. It feels expensive. It's filmed as though every conversation is very important and needs your utmost attention. Although the second half is overwrought with monologues, the film is successful at getting you sitting at the edge of your seat, wondering when the next attack will be. As the soundtrack ramps up, so does your heart rate. The best stuff is the mood of unease that comes from watching boats go out into the night and the underwater sequences with every jump scare and fake out. Like, oh, they got me again. I'm kind of a jumpy horror enthusiast. But when it comes to Piranha, there's nothing slow about it. Every scene raises the stakes and increases the tension, and people are dying left and right. The monster isn't simply a prize to be won, an obstacle to people enjoying their summer, the cost of doing business, or a bureaucratic mess to untangle. The piranhas are genuine threats to the lives of everyone they encounter, because they are many and they are fierce.
Give me an F-I-E-R-C.
And unlike in Jaws, no one knows about them except our main characters. And the main characters are trying to find a way to keep people safe, and they face challenges at every turn, giving each scene narrative significance. Piranha consists of the pool, the lake, the jail cell, the summer camp, and of course, there's an underwater climax. Maggie and Paul are moving through this adventure with a specific goal in mind. They've got so many ops, so they're always doing shit. To be blunt, in Jaws, they don't go a lot of places, and I think that's what bothers me. Jaws takes place at one beach, It's just man against the open ocean, and by man, I literally mean men against the open ocean. In terms of effects, the animatronic shark from Jaws is phenomenal. It looks amazing underwater and even better above water. The scene where the man falls out of the boat and we can see the shark from above the water with its mouth wide open from the side always gets me.
Brother, did you see what I think I saw?
Piranha can't compare with Jaws, a movie where they
spared no expense.
But I think I'd trade an animatronic for a rubber fish any day of the week. On my first watch of Piranha, I actually thought the rubber fish were animatronics, and I think it's impressive that they were able to create that effect on such a small budget. Even during the parts where Piranha might look a little cheesy, such as the stop motion effects in the lab scene, its use to show experimental fish above ground is surprising and allows you to further buy into the story. The creativity displayed by the Piranha team in their use of a variety of effects to achieve effective scares are simply more impactful than the animatronic shark that broke down and the repetition of 2 musical notes. Look at this animated blood effect for the opening title screen. Like, that's so good. Moreover, I think the sound effects in Piranha evoke more fear than the music in Jaws. Fortunately or unfortunately, sharks don't make a lot of noise. It's just the subject matter. Piranhas do make a sound, and the chittering sound of those fish, combined with Pino Donaggio's score and the gory makeup effects, enhance the depiction of sheer terror. Piranha takes big swings and liberates itself through experimentation. Jaws is a safe big budget film, and it has to be. $9 million in 70s money was on the line, which is at least double that in now money. Now I want to talk about costuming and makeup.
Some bad hat, Harry.
Partially because it's something that I always pay attention to, and partially because it's something often overlooked. I want to say that Jaws has a timeless wardrobe. Everyone in the cast feels polished, or rather, everyone feels clean. Even the dirty people feel clean, and by dirty people I do mean Quint. The majority of the outfits feel like they're out of a fashion catalog, and no one, excluding the people in swimwear, feel like they're dressed for the season. How hot is it in Amity? I can't tell. I can't tell how hot it is during the beach scenes. I can't tell how cold it is during the ocean scenes. The thing is, I can recognize it in anime, so why can't I in Jaws? The most the movie ever felt like the 70s was the first scene at the campfire. But even then, we're talking about a rich 70s. The neat model-esque wardrobe, at least during the first half, tells you everything you need to know about the project and the people they're trying to curate. You know what? Even the second half, nothing's wrinkly. That is not a $10 shirt, sir. On one hand, that's what makes Jaws a movie that people will watch forever. And I think we need movies like that. But when I look at Piranha, I see a wardrobe of the moment. I see a film that's very grounded in the late 70s. It's authentic. I can tell it's hot and that the people are working class. Out with the gray crop neck cashmere sweatshirts, the Henleys, and the turtlenecks. I love the iconic makeup of the 1970s girls, the Aloha shirts, the knee-high tube socks, and the Bermuda shorts. I love the lesbian camp counselors enjoying a night on the water, one in her t-shirt and high-waist bell-bottoms, and the other in her button-up. So iconic. I also love this specific straw pork pie hat on the bearded fisherman. It adds so much character to him. He comes off as spirited, and you can tell Paul is down on his luck because he's still in his workman jeans, and he's got the vest on, so you can tell he fishes. Maggie's outfit is similarly perfect because it feels like a City Girls parody of a Southern outfit. So she's got these big boots on that don't necessarily go with the cuffed pants. Her outfit makes her feel out of place, but also shows that she's a city girl who's trying to belong. And of course, it immediately identifies her as an outsider because her look just doesn't stand up to scrutiny. There's no conceivable way that she could be from around the area. It's clear her clothes are very crisp and cost more than the main character's outfits. She's also got this big bag that's full of secrets, and you think she's gonna pull out a notebook or something, but no, she's got an axe in there. You get a glimpse of all these characters' personalities from the first moment you see them, and a huge part of that is because of what they are wearing. Jaws may be forever, but Piranha embodies the 70s wholeheartedly and unapologetically. This kind of ties into casting. Like I said, everyone in Jaws looks a little too clean. And for me personally, I tend to struggle when everyone looks a little too suburban. And not suburban 2025, suburban 1995. Additionally, a lot of these characters act as archetypes, which makes it difficult to be interested in them. The film spends the first half with a variety of men in important positions whose job it is to make money and get by without ruffling any feathers. The second half is spent with 3 men whose different egos we have to navigate, but whose egos don't make them any more individual. Ultimately, the 3 of them are equally stubborn and view themselves as saviors. They want their way of doing things to be what allows them to succeed in capturing their white whale. Not to mention the lack of black actors when we're in the Northeast always kind of kills my vibe. I know we're there and I know we've been there. Compare this to Piranha, where they look like people ass people. Although they're in rural Texas, the film is more relatable to me along class lines. It features complex characters fighting against a system that stymies them at every turn. And while it's homogenous, that's kind of expected for a rural town in Texas, as opposed to a large beachfront community in the Northeast. I mentioned it a bit earlier, but we're gonna talk about it now. Jaws is a middle-class movie.
All right. Hey, I don't need this. I don't need this working class hero crap.
And like I said, 70s middle class, not middle class now. It takes place in Martha's Vineyard, and everyone in it is affluent. It centers on different experts in their field, the hipster glasses guy who's a marine expert.
Who are you? Matt Hooper. I'm from the Oceanographic Institute.
Quint, who is an expert shark catcher.
Y'all know me. Know how I earn a living.
And Sheriff Brody with a good heart who would do anything to protect his town.
Chief Brody?
Yes?
The point is, the people of Jaws are rich, and you can tell. Safety is a given. No one is watching their kids. Put a pin in it. No one really cares about the shark because no one feels that they could be impacted by tragedy. Kids even spray paint graffiti on a billboard, making fun of the fact that someone could be eaten by a shark at any time. Piranha, however, is gritty. It's working class. As mentioned previously, it takes place in rural Texas, where the beach isn't even an ocean, it's a river. That river isn't just used for enjoyment, it's used for travel, as a method that people use to reach their neighbors. And when it comes to safety in Piranha, Paul is not the best dad, but he's so clearly trying, and his concern makes a lot of sense. Not in the sense of a sheriff trying to protect his parish, but rather in a more personal way, as a father concerned about his daughter, who he expected to be safe at summer camp. Where rich parents can take time off to enjoy the summer with their kids, a poorer family tends to send their kids to summer camp while they go to work. It's these more subtle differences that make Piranha a more relatable movie to me, or I guess more special to me. Now remember when I said that Jaws was a men talking movie? One thing about Jaws that bothers me is how it puts women to the side. Now, genre films of this variety, that being monster eats people movies, actually tend to feature a lot of women and girls. With archetypal or distinct personalities, women are unquestionably present in this genre. And I guess I'm not interested in the cruel masculinity of this film, as it begins with a lengthy scene of a cheery girl dying in a way which feels like an indictment of her freedom and promiscuity. When I think of women in Jaws, I think of the death of Chrissy, which is her name by the way, and I think of Brody's wife Ellen, who we know nothing about. Does she work? Is she a housewife? What characteristics does she have as a person? Any interests even? It's kind of sad that Chrissy, who dies in the first 5 minutes of the film, has more character than Ellen, who is present throughout the first half of the film. At least we know that Chrissy is flirty and goes to 70s fire parties on the beach, enjoys skinny dipping, and likely casual sex. We don't know for sure. It's the 70s. I mean, she died, so we didn't get to see the outcome of the whole situation. But compare that to Piranha, which puts women front and center. It opens with the death of young people, but specifically the death of a young couple, David and Barbara, which feels low-key fair. I'll take that for equality because it is a kinder creative choice to have them die together rather than to have Chrissy die alone in the ocean waiting for the boy of her affection who passed out on the beach. Piranha also has co-ed co-stars, displaying a friendship between men and women, or at the very least, a partnership, as they are united by the same goal, to stop the damage of the Piranha rampage. For all of Jaws' bureaucratic obstacles, the woman at the town meeting who just wants the beach open no matter what, ultimately has her voice fade into the chaos of the meeting. She's a character who doesn't actually matter, because she isn't present for the second half of the film. Compare that to Dr. Mengers, played by horror icon Barbara Steele, who is a major antagonist. This ties in a bit, but Jaws really paints Martin Brody as a paternalistic protector. And I mean that in the traditional sense. Martin Brody has a will to protect generally, referring to his community and those under his dominion, but he doesn't actually do any visible police work. He complains about child rearing, but we never see him do any. If there were no sharks at this beach, what would Martin Brody be doing? There is seemingly nothing else happening at the sheriff's department.
In 25 years, there's never been a shooting or a murder in this town.
All child rearing has been delegated to Ellen, who also doesn't seem to be very good at this, as her children are often in places where they shouldn't be, and when they are found, they often aren't pursued.
Where they role models at? Where's the adults?
The Brody brood are never where they were left, and they are often left. I find this to be a childish and simplistic vision of fatherhood. I can't tell that Martin cares about his kids, but I can tell that he doesn't want beachgoers to be endangered. Paul from Piranha, I feel, is less flatly written. He's more of a parent. He feels more grounded. He's a flawed man trying to do better for his family, rather than a man who has perfect intentions and picture-perfect drive from start to finish. Paul at the start of the film may not be the perfect dad, able to give his child a beautiful house on the beach and a perfect summer vacation, but he is a single father who paid for his daughter's summer camp, and he cares enough to teach his daughter self-determination by affirming her choices. Even as a literal sacrificial daddy, he is shown to be a well-rounded character with a real arc when compared to Martin.
You think I'm wasting my time here, don't you?
No! I think you're wasting my time!
What can we do?
Well, we gotta do something.
Get to work on those signs. Beach is closed. No swimming. By order of the Amity PD.
Smile, you son of a...
I want to start this section by saying something that shouldn't be controversial, but I don't know if every school in the US teaches this or not. Well, hold up, let me dial it back. Children are people. Little people, smaller people, but they are people, and all people have wants, needs, desires, and individualized personalities. We had a whole child's rights movement that I'm not sure gets taught everywhere in this country. The children in Jaws have no personalities and negligent parents. Now, I'm nowhere near being a parent.
I am not a mom!
But as someone who was a troubled kid, I can sympathize. The Brody children don't listen to their parents, but their parents don't care enough to watch them either. We as the audience do not see these children's inner world. We get glimpses of children who are reckless because they are too young to understand the danger around them, and parents who don't care enough to convey that danger either. Even though their father is directly involved in the attempt to solve the problem, it's always hard to feel for a character in a movie that has no character traits. And I know good child acting is hard to come by, but these children that are going to be endangered should have something I can point to that shows their character, and they don't. That being said, I love little Susie in Piranha. I think she's adorable, and most importantly, the movie treats her like she matters. She matters to her father, she matters to the camp counselors, and thus she matters to the audience. In fact, she's at the center of the entire B-plot. The summer camp B-plot essentially consists of the fact that little Susie, she's scared of water. She doesn't want to be in the river. She doesn't know what's in there. And quite frankly, neither do I. I don't know what's in river water. But the appeal of her character is the fact that she's a child with agency. While timid, she tries a variety of methods to avoid getting in the river during summer camp, just like a real kid would. She's trying to find a way out of doing something she doesn't want to do. She says she's uncomfortable in the water. She tells the camp director she doesn't want to do it. She tells the counselors she's scared. She participates in a prank to avoid doing a water-based activity because she's a little scamp. And she even fakes an injury. If you can say one thing about Susie, she's got drive. She's got power.
It's about drive, it's about power. We stay hungry, we devour.
Big fan, slay kiddo. Well, the first thing we learn about Paul is that he's an alcoholic.
Tequila!
It isn't long before we learn that he has a daughter, and it's his concern for her well-being and her safety that forces his hand regarding the piranhas. He has to get involved in the court conflict because it will impact his local community, but he becomes further involved when it's revealed that the fish may swim towards where his daughter attends camp. So what's nice about Piranha is that parenthood is an active endeavor that is able to serve as the motivation motivation for the character's involvement in the plot, as opposed to Jaws, where parenthood is a given. Jaws treats parenthood as passive and secondary. The reason for Brody being involved in the main plot is out of duty, and that makes it feel very impersonal. I feel like Jaws is filled with a lot of greasing of each other's palms, if you will. There's a shark in the water, and the sheriff is there out of duty, trying to protect the community. Here's the problem. That community doesn't actually care who gets hurt, because they just want to swim. When someone actually does get hurt, this community holds a town meeting. During this meeting, it becomes evident that none of these people, aside from Brody, actually care who gets hurt, because everyone else just wants to enjoy the beach. And you would think that the mayor might actually care about someone getting hurt in his town, but no, he's concerned with the optics of closing the beach. You follow the chain of command all the way up, but everybody's passing the buck. As you can see, Jaws is a very individualistic movie. Nobody cares about the overall safety of the community or demonstrates interest in thinking about the group as a whole, and this itself reflects a pessimistic belief of how politics works. And it becomes conservative when you consider the movie's perspective, which is one lone man trying to do right by his community for the right reasons, pushing back against the system to keep everyone safe and accomplish his goal. But the one man is a cop, so it's also propaganda.
Your Honor, this is propaganda. Do you hear me? This is propaganda.
I would argue that Jaws is a movie that respects authority, whereas Piranha doesn't give a f***. Piranha thinks the military is at best incompetent in that they made the piranhas, forgot about them, and left them in a swimming pool, unguarded, abandoned in a secret lab in Texas, and at worst, outright malicious, in that they don't really care about the town being impacted by the piranhas as long as they don't have to deal with the problem or accept the blame for the problem they created. Jaws routinely defers to experts and centers authorities who don't exhibit a duty of care. It treats us to a demonstration of how individualistic people can be, regardless of their role in civil service. Our veteran shark wrangler Quint is in the game for financial gain, and to add another shark jaw to his wall. Matt, our coastal elitist oceanographer, is there because he was asked, and he stays out of scientific curiosity, but he genuinely considers leaving.
Goodbye. I'm not going to waste my time arguing with a man who's lining up to be a hot lunch.
Neither are really thinking about saving lives so much as they are united by a common interest and desire to compete. Only Chief Brody, our main character, has a duty of care, and only he embodies the movie's sense of justice. Piranha's distrust extends to the government and corporations alike, but puts faith in well-intentioned outsiders, whereas Jaws distrusts systems and believes in relying on individual figures of the state. I cannot emphasize this fact enough. Everyone in authority in Piranha is a dick. More specifically, they are a dick to our would-be hero, Paul. Poor Paul. He's newly unemployed and hitting the bottle to cope.
Tequila!
He'll get back on his feet eventually, but he's stuck. The government regulated Paul out of his job to protect the environment, but sold the land to the military, who proceeded to sell it to a company who ended up building a resort and making a ton of money.
Acres and acres of reclaimed land nestled in a scenic mountain valley. And for the small fry, there's Buck Gardner's Aquarina Amusement Arcade.
Piranha puts Paul right in the crosshairs of government incompetence and shallow corporate interest. Neither he nor Maggie know much about the Piranha menace. These two are genuinely just well-meaning civilians who, mind you, are nosy, but are genuinely just trying to understand what's going on here. When the pair are attacked by Dr. Robert Hoke in the mysterious pool house full of tragic experiments, they defend themselves, knocking him out and dragging him along to make him explain
What's been going on here?
Dr. Hoke explains that he's a filthy, money-hungry man using his scientific knowledge for evil and profit.
The government paid you?
They pay a lot better than they do in private research.
Maybe he didn't mean for this to impact this little Texas town, but he did decide that he could make the most money by conducting illicit secret experiments for the US military to use during the Vietnam War. We view the film through the eyes of Paul and Maggie, who proceed to shame him for his role in such a horrible and unnecessary war. Our main characters understand this system and their role in it. Paul understands that citizens' tax dollars went to pay for something horrible and unnecessary, and Maggie understands that this scientific research could have harmed civilians, and even though the research was discarded, people were still harmed. The point is that our main characters connect what they are experiencing in the present to a larger image of what's going on. They clearly understand how these systems work and the roles that they play. We also see that in the way they realize that the piranhas won't stop at this river system in Texas, that they will likely get to the ocean, and even the possibility that they could get to the ocean and harm other people is enough for our two would-be heroes to jump into action.
Resorts down there, summer camp.
All those kids, come on.
When Hoke dies, they try and look for someone else to help, when they realize they have to stop the dam from opening and letting the piranhas flood into the rest of the river. But the military shows up with a plan to poison the river, because all injustices done abroad will ultimately be brought back home. Of course it doesn't work, and the piranhas aren't affected by the poison. They just change direction.
In other words, the piranha have got a way to get around the obstacle.
In that direction is the resort and the summer camp. The military and their expert Dr. Mangers don't listen because the colonel is invested in the resort, so he won't address the issue as a matter of public safety.
As far as you're concerned, Mr. Grogan, this project does not exist. Understand that piranha do not exist.
And Dr. Mangers was in a relationship with Dr. Robert Hoke, so she hides that she knows how advanced the piranha are and chooses to hide her knowledge and involvement.
Some things are more important than a few people's lives.
So Paul and Maggie get detained by the military. They have to break out.
Oh,
What's wrong?
you got a dime?
The pair attempts to call the summer camp to warn them that the water is dangerous. The camp counselor doesn't listen because he looks down on Paul and sees himself as the drill sergeant in charge of this children's summer camp.
No, you can't talk to your daughter. Sober up, Grogan, and fly right.
Then they get detained by police.
Maybe we can talk to him. Maybe he'll believe us.
Piranha, huh?
The cop won't listen because he looks down on Paul for being an outsider who fell into the bottle
Tequila!
and wants to exert control over him. They have to break out again. They realize that the fish can live in fresh and salt water. They call the resort. Then the resort owner doesn't listen.
Listen to me! Please, before...
Thank you.
Because he has a deal with the colonel and wants to use his cheap secondhand attractions to make a lot of money off the people in this small town. Everyone in authority in Piranha has a motive, and safety is never one of them. The story just feels so much bigger than Jaws, as the colonel threatens the pair, basically telling them he can do whatever he wants with them under the guise of national security.
The interests of national security permit very extreme measures.
At the end of the day, not a single authority figure is helpful to Paul and Maggie. Our unlikely heroes play the roles of virtuous underdogs outside of the system that work together to save everyone from the piranha menace. Unlike in Jaws, they have no significant educational background that we are aware of that would make them experts or people normally worth listening to on such an important matter. They also don't have experience catching piranhas or a plan to resolve the piranha problem, unlike Quentin, Mac, and Jaws. They have to make up plans on the fly. Piranhas are in the water and it's up to a city girl sleuth and a down on his luck dad to face down the military, the police, the camp director, and the resort owner, and they have to do whatever it takes to save the town and Paul's daughter. Piranha is obviously similar to Jaws in that there are folks who are putting their own interests before the safety and well-being of the town. But unlike Jaws, this film's community is unaware of the dangers facing it and thus doesn't actively put their selfish desires above concern for their neighbors. Moreover, the film's main characters stop at nothing to save the town, despite facing significantly more opposition than their boat-laden counterparts navigating town politics. As a result, Piranha feels like a national story rather than a small town one, and feels more like a collectivist or proletarian work. It shuns and bucks the system at every turn, as each one fails our protagonists as they attempt to complete their quest. Piranha. Jaws. Two movies, similar up top, but with different souls. Jaws is a battle of male egos and status, with people whose goals align but have different interests. Piranha is a good-natured story about two outsiders with the odds stacked against them, fighting a system that wants them to fail. When I think of Piranha, I think of America today, where the little guy gets screwed over by the military, the government, corporations, and big money interests. I watch the news and I see what's happening to working people in towns and cities all over the country. And that's the real difference between Piranha and Jaws. Jaws didn't make me think about anything but ego, but Piranha forced me to think about the ways in which people are struggling inside and against the system. Piranha is a movie of the moment. Emdash Trash, out.